One of the constant themes that I have on the podcast is the smarter versus harder continuum. It's not binary, it's not one or the other. It's somewhere between working just smart or just hard. Why is this so important? Because what we have to do is sell based off of the problem or the game that we're playing. If you have a transactional deal with people that are the simple sale, they're both the technical and the economic decision maker. Maybe the work harder continuum has more results. Now, on the other side, let's say you sell B2B, like I hope you do, and most of these guests do. That's the focus of the show. You have lots of decisions to be made. Do we look at you? Do we meet with you? Do we talk with you? Do we share what we're doing with you? Do we evaluate you? Do we continue talking with you? That continuum, the working smarter is required. There's fewer deals, more people, high complexity, high dollar amount, lots of risk. Now, today's guest, it's not as complex as that, but it's still hard. And this was a great conversation because you'll probably sense that he does not appear like a natural salesperson. Yet his approach is completely different. I call it a maverick approach, somebody outside of the lanes, but highly effective. And I think you'll get a lot out of this one today. And I like talking with reps like this because what they do is they figure out the game that they're playing instead of just fitting into the cadences and the mantras that are out there that, just do this, personalized relevance, these platitudes that really don't help us. But like most things in sales, the devil's in the distinctions. Because we'll talk about relationships, and people hear these keywords and they get triggered into what that means to them versus what other meaning it could have. So we'll get into that. If you're in the courses, we did a great office hours yesterday for winning the complex sale. I bought a vibe board. It was the first time I tried to use it. I'm going to start incorporating it more into the office hours to make them more engaging. A vibe board is basically this electronic whiteboard so that you can, draw on it, expand it, move it around. Pretty helpful. Also, if you're in that course, I put a bonus 1 hour description of helping this company out, basically a consulting engagement I did, helping them get to why now. Because what most people are facing today is they can afford it, they like it, it adds value, but they can't seem to get the company to pull the trigger. And I showed them how to increase that. Nothing works 100% of the time, but this approach has worked, I bet 80% of the time in the course, and there's plenty of one-on-one evidence of that where you can see one-on-one, we're talking about the problem, we come up with a solution, we apply it, we hone it, and we get the result. Also, make sure you're checking out our friends over at Co-Video. Have you tried video email? It's part of your repertoire. It's part of your system. It's part of the things that you can do. Not every time, not all the time, but sometimes if you are able to engage with people in video and say, oh, I'm not photogenic. And say, oh, God, no one's expecting an Instagram model on the other end. Trust me, that hasn't happened. But they kind of want to get a sense of who you are. Are you sincere? Do you care about them? How can you build trust? Text? Doesn't cut it anymore. Try Co-Video, covideo.com. Give it a try. Let them know you heard about it from the podcast. Let's get into the interview. I'll sum it up at the end. I've got some ideas I want to share with you at the end. Hey, Kyle, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So for me, I started, I think like a lot of young people now, just got a cold calling job out of college, was selling tech. You're starting off with just a bunch of cold calls, and uh, from there moved into doing closing and really got into tech sales. I worked for a couple different companies in tech sales, and then I moved to medical device sales. So now I'm more of a territory manager. Um, I've had great success in my career. I've gotten to meet a lot of great people who have taught me a lot of things. And I've really gotten to be able to actually teach some other people too and coach. And that's been, just as rewarding. So it's been a fun ride, pretty short. I know you bring a lot of people on the show who are on the podcast, I guess, who have probably more years of experience, but I'm happy to contribute what I can with my time that I've had.
And what was it like going from technology to medical device?
For me, it was no different. I mean, I don't
Really?
think the basics for me of what you're selling really change. You still have to deep dive. You still have to talk to your customer. You still have to find out their goals. You still have to do a lot of the things that are the same. You have to prospect. The price tag is higher, so maybe the sales cycle goes a little bit longer. But when you're selling to big companies and you're selling tech, you still have a long sales cycle. You're gonna have to do multiple meetings. So and in essence, I don't think it's changed very much. And the medical device is basically tech now. So,
But it's what, dentist offices or
dental and orthodontist. Yep.
yeah, and they're not easily accessible, are they? Or do you just go in as a patient and open the brochure? Or
So I work for a company that's pretty well known by them. So when I go in, a
okay,
lot of them know me, which makes it a lot easier. But
yeah,
that being said, I spend the majority of my time going to the ones that don't know me or that don't use us, or even that know us and don't like us. Because that's where I find like the biggest opportunity. So yeah, I mean, it can be tough to get in, but that's kind of one of my when I'm, and today I kind of prepared a list of sales rules or things I always do or I would recommend for anybody listening to always try. And one of them is always have a reason to go in. So no
yeah.
matter where you're going, you have to have a valid reason. It can't just be smoke screen for why you're there today. And if you have that, I mean, you can get in to most places.
And what are some of them? A new device, a new release, or
I looked at your website and I noticed there was a certain thing that we have a perfect solution to fix.
yeah,
Something that shows you did research, or hey, I had a short email conversation with the doctor. That's why I'm here today, which requires you to first try and have that short email conversation with the doctor. But you have a valid reason. You're not just showing up and saying, "Hi, can I have some minutes with the doctor?" Like, no, he's busy. He's with patients. You're not going to get that time. So you definitely, I mean, don't be afraid to just call ahead, but have a reason for why you're calling.
yeah. A lot of people, oh, I just want to meet you or shake your hand or put a name with a face, and it's like, because they
Like,
get paid by the hour. They're
yeah.
essentially hourly people.
And I mean, and really all you're going to find then are the people who are less busy, which is not what you want. You want
They
people
don't
who
have
are
the
very
money.
busy, or people who are just too nice and they're going to say what you want to hear and you're going to leave and nothing's going to change and they're never going to purchase anything. So, yeah.
Yeah. What are the rules? I'm glad you prepared some of those.
Yeah. So, let me pull this up. So, well, I broke it really up into two things. Some are just things that I do personally that have really led to my success, and then I have
Yeah.
some rules that I think would just work for everybody. So, what would you like me to, I guess, go over first?
What works for you first, I guess.
So I mean, the biggest one, and this is kind of a rule, I guess, is in both categories, is to just listen. I mean, I'm sure you've heard it a million times. Hopefully, every person who comes on here recommends the same thing. But listening, and I combine that with asking questions. You can't listen if you haven't first asked a question to prepare an answer for them to talk. So you have to ask questions and really drive them to their own conclusions. And in a lot of my sales trainings, one of the biggest things I found was even when people are aware of that, they'll ask a question and then immediately cut to the answer or cut to the benefit or cut to the feature. And that's not going to get you anywhere. It's the layers of questions, asking why a third time, a fourth time. And I'm not even kidding, a fifth time, to really get down to why are you doing this? Even if they're saying what you want to hear, I love your product. I love your service. It's done a lot for me. I'd like to do more of it. Why? Like, what does that do for you? Will make me more money. Okay, well, what does that do for you? Why do you need more money? Like, and when you get to those bottom layer answers, it's going to uncover a lot of things, either, opportunity for you to pitch your product, or it's just that reason you need to really motivate them through the sale.
Yeah. I had a guy who said, ask at least 3 times, because then you get to the real base reason why they want to do it. They want to leave the office early on Friday. They want to buy a new car. They want to sell their practice. Some real reason that's a personal win. Because the first one's definitely not the reason why.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do anything with it because it's a high level. But it's also a great way to get the conversation going.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have an issue with listening at first, or?
I think I was lucky in the sense that my first cold calling job I had out of college, which was, I guess, 6 years ago, I had really, really good teachers, and they taught me to ask questions. And we had to read spin selling, challenger sales, Socratic questions. They're all the same principle. And I'm somebody who, and that was one of my other things I did, I think works for me. I sample lines, ideas, questions from all the reps around me. So first thing I did, and I think it's important for everybody to not be too prideful, not think, hey, this is my approach, so it's good. Even if you're not number one in the company, then there's a better way to do it. And it doesn't really matter too much about your personality, I think, as long as you're asking the right questions. And so I would immediately go and shadow all of the best reps in the company and just watch their meetings. And I would spend months doing this and trying to figure out what lines do they use, what gets the right responses from the customers that they're trying to bring on. And I think that really helped a lot. So I wouldn't say I struggled, because I never was just trying to reinvent the wheel. I just took what other people were doing that worked and did that.
And that's smart, right? Because you're learning from what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, they'll listen to the calls, but they listen to them in the totality versus the segmentation of trying to find the distinctions.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, he's talking about listening to calls. I remember some meetings where they would pull up, it was my call or somebody else's, and say, hey, this is a great example of what we should do. And everybody afterwards always says, well, that was an easy one. Well, when you're doing it right, it should sound easier. It should be a conversation that just flows. And if you have a job, if your company has the money to hire you, that means your product has value. And you can have calls like that. Now, and if no one in the company is able to have those calls, then maybe you need to look at another company. But majority of people have a product worth selling, and if you can make everything simple, I think that's the other thing too, is just keeping it simple. I always felt that my job was to take all these complex, the marketing strategy they want us to pitch, or whatever it is, or the new features, and just simplify it. And the best way to simplify it is to only tell them what applies to them. And you can't do that if you haven't asked the questions first.
And that's it. I think a lot of companies make the mistake of overcomplicating it, using their buzzwords, their terminology that has no tangible meaning to the other person. Instead of taking the empathetic, it's like, if I say this, are they going to understand it?
And speaking of, like you say, them understanding it, I think that's a really good point too, because a lot of times we're selling to a master of an industry. A lot of times we're selling across all industries, right? And that can be really hard and intimidating. But no matter how smart they are, no matter how well they know the industry, they don't know your product. And you need to talk to them like someone who is just like someone who's a day one new hire, because they're not going to understand why it's beneficial or how it works. And I think sometimes people think, oh, well, you're an expert, you know the industry, I'm just going to kind of cut corners. Here's the meat and potatoes. No, walk them through it, and they'll nod and act like they're understanding. But I find that no matter how smart they are, no matter how elite they may be, they always need, you to simplify, because they just don't know your product yet.
Yeah, and you don't want them being overconfident that they assume what it is versus know what it is.
Exactly, yeah.
Because you kind of got to build off of what they do know, but differentiate.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use the keywords that they already know, they're going to think, I got that all set there, got it covered. And
absolutely.
Well, what are some of the other things that you learned along the way?
Um, one that's kind of interesting to talk about. I listened to your podcast and I heard, there's definitely different opinions on this, and by no way am I going to say my opinion is right, but my opinion on relationship selling. I'm one of those new, kind of the new age thought of it doesn't have the value that we used to think it does. And I say that in a sense of, hey, like my meetings, when I have meetings with people, they're fun and we'd make jokes, but I think sometimes people get lost in, if I become best friends with you, you're going to buy more from me. And I've seen that has happened, but I've seen more often than that where they are best friends with somebody. They go golfing with them and they go out on the weekends with them, but they're not their biggest supplier. They're not their biggest customer. You're just friends now. And that's fine. You can make friends with customers. But for me, that was never my intention. And I don't, I think my relationship with my customers is more of, hey, if I'm calling you, I have a strategy or a product or something that's going to help grow your business.
Yeah.
And that's our relationship. And they look forward to that call. And it's an enthusiastic call because we're both excited. But it's not necessarily we're buddy buddy.
Yeah, I think people get wrapped around the axle that it's one thing or the other,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because everybody who's against it uses like the golfing analogy, and everybody who's for it says, "Oh, you're only going to work with you when it's a transaction."
Mm-hmm.
But when you position it like you're kind of an industry expert at what you do, you've demonstrated value as somebody who knows this particular part of their business. So that is the value they get. But if they don't need it, how do you get them to talk with you? Because
Mm-hmm.
kind of the liking part of it is they enjoy talking with you. And it might be because you know the expertise, or it might be because you know the sports team. But if they don't enjoy talking with you, they'll only talk with you when they have to talk with you, which is
Mm-hmm.
not a good time.
Yeah.
Because then it's price comparison or something.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the podcasts that you had, I don't remember the person's name, but they were talking about just being enthusiastic, and it made me think back to one of my, like, when I had switched territory. One of my old customers, responded with an email and said, "Hey, it's been great," and one of the words they used was, "Really appreciated how enthusiastic you were." And that was never an approach for me. I never thought of being that. And then when I looked back and realized, hey, well, I guess I was. Why was I? And that's kind of one of the things. Go back to my list here of things I learned along the way. Everybody talks about pre-call planning. I think I take that to an extreme. I mean, some of my best, what makes selling fun for me is, I'll sit in my home office and really map out everything. I know nowadays companies give you so much data, and I'll try to take that data and go a step further with it, right? Like I still have, analytics I can do. So what more can I take out of what they've already given me, even though it's great? And maybe tie two different things that are siloed together to create something that's even more advantageous. And when I go into an office, it's because I've done the pre-call planning and I'm excited because I know you're a great opportunity for me to be successful right now. And they feel that. And I'm not just enthusiastic, it's not an empty thing where I'm just here to be excited and, hey, I'm going to smile
That's
a
the
lot, you're going to buy
difference,
my
right?
product.
Yeah.
I'm excited because I picked you out, and you and me can do great business together. And that's what I think is contagious for people.
Yeah. And maybe excitement isn't the right word for it. Is more not more confident that it's the right match.
Mm-hmm.
Because too many people, I mean, because when you say salesperson, a lot of people conjure up,
Yeah.
the party guy. Hey, baby, what's going on? Right. And that's one kind of excitement. But I really like that pre-call planning. And I used to tell pretty much every rep I worked for, I've never over prepared for a meeting. Because if you do, you probably would have figured out it wasn't going to happen or it wasn't the right match. But
Mm-hmm.
when you know it's a good match for whatever reason, and then you did your research on the people, the company, the competition, where they want to go, and you think through like, how do I think this is going to play out? So you can develop your judgment skill.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're way off, it's like, how did I read that wrong? You know?
Well, one thing I really liked when I came on or when I found your podcast, and I have to pull it up and see exactly what it says, but one of the first descriptions is it's basically about working smarter, not harder. And the pre-call planning thing, I can think of so many times where a manager, we new group of people, we just start and they just want people to just go, just start calling. And I'm usually one of the last people to do that, but I've traditionally been one of the most successful people on my team or in my group or whatever it is. And that's not a coincidence, to just go call is you're spinning your wheels. And if you really take time to plan, know your, not just your product, like everything about your product, know everything about your product. I had managers literally tell me, stop sitting here with people learning about the product and go get on the phone. And it couldn't be more wrong, because that stuff comes up. It gives you validation. You never know what question's going to come up. And the second you don't know something, you're not the expert in that call. And the customer now doesn't trust you quite as much. And then you also have to know the industry you're selling into. When you can just use buzzwords or paint a picture of what their everyday looks like, like right now I work with orthodontists, for example. I could say, oh, well, if you use this product, you're going to have less emergency visits with their braces breaking. Okay, well, that's okay. But if I say, hey, well, how do you feel at 3:30 on a Thursday when you're trying to go home and someone came in and their bracket broke 6 months ago and now they're way off track and they never told you? Like, wow, that is what it feels like. And you give them a sense that you understand. So you got to do the research. You got to plan.
That's it. Because if you just randomly get on the phone, how are you going to talk about them versus you and what you do?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's you and what you do, it's a commercial. And you're kind of asking them to meet you where you are versus you meeting them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And, the best salespeople I know, it's their judgment skills, who to work with, what do they care about? How do I get them interested? How do I take them on this little buying journey together? Because going to talk to somebody who doesn't buy is a colossal waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Your manager never says, you know what, you work so hard on that, we're going to comp you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That has never happened in the history of sales.
Yeah. Well, and the more you do that research, though, I think it is important to know too, I call it play dumb. I don't know. There's probably a more professional term for it, but
some of us don't have to play.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'm not playing. Maybe that's just how it is. I still don't understand, but I love that. I mean, help me, the phrase, help me to understand.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, when you want them to come up, like everyone knows they should need to come up with their own conclusion. But a lot of people, I think, get stuck on how do I get there and how do I get them to do that? Well, it's asking the questions. And even though you know the answers, you need them to say it. So, hey, well, and that's what spin selling, I think, is great for. And I don't know, we can go into what spin selling is or how you use it or anything like that if you want to, but to get them to come to the conclusion of, hey, well, if this is the problem and this is what you need to happen, then why don't you just do something like this? And when they say, oh, well, I mean, I don't know how to do that, and I know my product does that, they're sold. Yeah. Well, actually, that's what we do. And now it's your turn to talk. And at this point, they've been talking for 30 minutes or an hour, and you can just say, hey, well, this is what you need. This is what we do. And I don't have to be the expert. I don't have to come off as smart.
And that's just smart, because you kind of guide them to that conclusion, because I'm sure a lot of what you sell, if you don't do that, they'll only buy it when they have to buy it versus when they should buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you can reverse those analogies on them. Don't you have patients that come in and you make a recommendation and they're like, and they wait a year, and then it's a mess to undo.
Well, and especially, I mean, when you're selling to people, whether it's like orthodontists I sell to, I mean, that's a pretty lucrative business. They're making pretty good money. There's not a huge reason for them to change. And like a lot of businesses, when I was selling technology and you get to the CEO of a pharmaceutical company, there's not much reason for a lot of them to change, so you do need to create a story or find an inefficiency that actually can be pretty impactful, or, so an insecurity in their current system that could lead to a problem down the road, even if there's not a monetary value on it. So, yeah, and you're only going to get there by asking questions and them driving themselves to that conclusion. You can't tell them.
And how long did it take you to have these kind of epiphanies, or were you just a student of the game where you just didn't like to
I
waste your
mean, I think,
time?
yeah, I think I was a student. I mean, I came in from day one. I never wanted to go into sales. My dad was in sales his whole life. My mom was in sales for a bit. They actually met in sales, and I was always, that's not where I'm going to go. But then I got into it, and I was just, well, I don't know anything. I'm not my dad, so I just felt I'm going to ask everybody how they do it, and I'm going to, well, who's better? And then all of a sudden, someone's the new best person. Well, what are you doing? And I'm going to listen to your calls and see what phrases you use and questions you ask. So I think it was just a student of the game. And I don't know. I noticed the days that I went in and I was feeling confident and I'm going to crush this and I'm going to sell all these deals were the days I didn't sell any deals. And it was the days where I went in and was like, you know what? I don't know. And I would just start asking questions. Why do you do this? Why do you do it like that? And those were always the days where it was just sale after sale after sale after sale. And it's funny, at the salespeople, I hear so many excuses about, that the people I'm calling are cheap, or, these people don't want to buy it, or our product stinks. And that showed me it's not them. I'm calling people all over the country. It's me. I'm the difference. Because the days when I am asking questions and listening, I'm selling. And the days when I'm not doing that, I'm not selling. And I think cold calling taught me that, because you're exposed. There's just more touch points in a day when you're cold calling.
And that's it. Because when you're doing cold calling, you take one of two on the spectrum, where you just read the thing and hope you find somebody at the right time, or you get creative because you either hate the rejection or you just want some success, and you turn it into a game, and you try a bunch of things, you loosen it up, you try and connect with the other person, and there's not much in between. Unfortunately, there's too many that are closer to the robocall than they are to the creative, getting somebody to talk.
And really, sales should be creative. I mean, like I'm an artist. I do a lot of stuff outside of sales, music, I always have to have projects. And I think for me, sales became fun. And if you don't want to get burnt out in sales, I think you need to look at it with a little creativity and have fun with it and come up with ideas. Hey, people in this bucket may be the best people for me to sell XYZ to. Let's explore that and let's make a project out of that. And that kind of goes to, I talked about kind of what I've done, then I have my rules. So kind of going into one of my rules is look where others haven't. All of my biggest opportunities, I feel, mostly all of them, at least 90% of them have come from, maybe I went back when I was cold calling, I look at a list and, it always says, this person is the decision maker, this person is the decision maker. And that's all right. Well, let me have a conversation with the person who really is, and it's usually someone else who's never heard of us. And when I get on the phone with them, they love the product. This is great. I don't know why we never found this earlier, because that person we thought that was the decision maker was not, and there's so many examples of that. What I do now, it might be that one office that is just under the radar. They haven't used us in years. And it just doesn't look like a good opportunity, but by going wide and looking where others haven't, you have a great conversation with them, and those have become my top providers. So look where others haven't, and you can find a lot of diamonds in the rough.
And do you find a lot of correlations between music and sales as far as learning?
I think in the sense of workflow, like you need to have a solid workflow. Like, so now I've definitely learned stuff like that. Like when you're looking at it as more of a project base, how do I start a project? Well, I need to first understand what elements are in the project. I need to fully understand them. So it's helped me in that sense. I think it'd probably be good for every salesperson to have some type of creative outlet, and now I have a system down. So when I switch territories or switch roles or switch products, I know exactly, all right, fine. Well, then I'm going to take this. I need to put these and these things into this spreadsheet. So I have a solid workflow, and it probably has helped in that regard.
Well, I mean, I think music has that repetition, has feedback, pretty
failure,
right? Good feedback, either from yourself or whoever's listening to it.
Yeah.
Either you have a coach, or you're pretty good at coaching yourself. Otherwise, you stay pretty static, right?
Mhm.
What instrument did you play or do play?
So I actually am a producer, so I do electronic music. So you make pretty much everything like, kind of all at once. So you're kind of, in a way, like you're the manager of the song, right? Like
Yeah.
and it's kind of the same thing with sales. You're the manager of your business, so you can do whatever parts you want first, but everything's got to work. And again, I used the phrase sample ideas from people earlier. Music is all about sampling and hearing a chord progression and taking it from somebody else and making it your own. And so it's kind of the same thing.
Any other rules?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we got tons. Depends how much you want to go into it. So, one thing I think we talked a lot about kind of ideas, but one thing I really love is that's a little more technical, I guess, is discounts. And how do you give a discount, and when do you give a discount, and what am I aiming for? Like I'd say it's kind of a two-part thing. Of one, aim big, right? Which I think some people I think they may not be confident in just giving a really big price tag that's bigger than what other people in the company are selling. And I just I don't know. I think it's just a different thing as far as what you practice is what you're going to get. If you really want to get good at selling a lot of quick, small deals, you can get good at that. But if you want to get good at selling really big deals, it's really fun and can be really rewarding. And you should probably practice that instead. And I don't think some people might think you're like taking advantage of the customer, and I just don't look at it that way. I mean, if you're selling business to business, what you're selling is meant to be scalable and used in a wide scale. So if you're trying to start small and cheap, they're not going to see the full benefit of it anyway. So help them see that. So, but the reason this relates to discounts, when you aim big, there's always room to discount later, but you need to argue at that big price tag for everyone being a user, for whatever it is. And you can always discount that later, and you'll still end up with a bigger deal than the people who are looking for the small deals.
Yeah, but it is hard to take a tiny deal or a small deal and build it up. It takes forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, they may buy their product and barely use it or wait to use it or whatever
Yeah.
it is before they ever buy more. Buy more upfront, but we need to be confident and sell that full vision and that full price tag upfront.
And how do you manage being different? Because everything that you shared typically doesn't fit well to most managers until they see the results.
That's funny that you say that because it really hasn't. Until my
Did
new
I notice
manager I just
something?
got in January. He's new, but he's really great. So I think he kind of gets it. But yeah, they pretty much all kind of question it at first. Like one common thing for me when I start is in the first few months is like, hey, the dials are low or whatever it is, the visits are low, and it's because we're doing that pre-call planning, like we talked about, getting that strategy. And I see where they're coming from because some people when they start, they're timid or maybe
People
nervous.
view it as lazy versus
Yeah.
smart.
Versus, yeah, maybe I am just strategically thinking. So I don't know. I mean, in my role now, there's been multiple times where I think when I've gone in somewhere, I've been told it's done this way, or hey, to sell this, it takes 5 visits. And then I was on my first one and I got the credit card. What do I do with that? And like, what do you mean you got the credit card?
You
I
have
was
to go
like, I
back
have the
four more
credit card.
times.
So what do I've had a lot of moments where they say a certain thing or you sell deals bigger than other people have, or this industry is, your vertical is going to be the, typically the lowest, but it doesn't have to be. I don't know. I guess I just don't accept that. I just aim big. And if you're aiming big and you fail, I mean, you only need one to go through, so.
And you got to play to your strengths. If you
Mhm.
like doing big deals and you're good at it, do it. Don't just do it because it's big. Do it because it excites you. You get emotionally attached to it. You have passion for it. And too many managers have that banister effect that, we're the first guy to break the 4-minute mile, right? It took hundreds of thousands of years to get to.
Someone was just talking to me about that exact thing a week ago. It's really funny you use that example.
Well, because it was a belief. And then within a year, there were like 14 people that broke the 4-minute mile.
Mm-hmm.
One for hundreds of thousands of years
Mm-hmm.
because it was a belief.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, if you hire college kids with zero experience, maybe you want an army of soldiers all walking lockstep. But when you get a little bit 5 years of experience, you got to let the Mavericks run.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and it's funny. I think what you're saying is exactly right. And to that example I gave earlier, after that, then that was the thing. Well, we don't have to do that anymore. So I think you just need to set those standards, and like look for 150% to quota, look for 200% to quota. Like don't let that scare you and sound like it's crazy. I think some people they get their quota in every company, in every industry, and they say, "Oh,
Right.
how are we going to do that?" Well, don't look at it like that. I think, how are we going to do double that? And then if you fail and you end up at 150%, then you're killing it. But for you to aim that big, you're going to have to think bigger and you're going to have to invent new things. So if that's your goal, I think naturally you're going to invent something new or do hasn't been done.
And I don't think we talk enough about creativity in sales. We talk a lot about curiosity, and clearly you have that. But to really do something different, you have to be creative, not just, run harder.
Mm-hmm.
That'll help you with the banister effect, but not with the dental effect, right? You got to be more creative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to look at the boundaries and say how many of these are real versus how many of them can I just run over or ignore or rethink?
Mm-hmm. And I think kind of on this subject of creativity, I was looking at my rules. We've actually kind of gone through a lot of them just in our conversation, but um, collaboration is huge. And I don't just mean collaborating with other people on your sales team or in your region, but get to know people in marketing, get to know people in product development, get to know people in every aspect of the business. And it does so much for you. You're going to learn more about your product, which is going to help you sell more. You're going to learn more about why marketing is marketing certain things. Sales and marketing, I mean, are in every company, the relationship is terrible, and I've never seen a company where it's really any different, because sales says, well, marketing is talking about stuff that they don't care about. And then, marketing doesn't really ask sales for much because they say, well, we got it. We understand what we're going to do with our marketing. But when you actually connect those two, we've discovered so much. I think they've learned from me, and I've definitely learned from them. And for the future of your career, you have networking and things other than just sales that is going to help boost your career and people to vouch for you. So I think people definitely need to be considering that as well.
Cool. Hey, I appreciate your time today, Kyle. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
I guess LinkedIn, Kyle McGee, or if they want to go to my Instagram, it's KYJAMA. It's Kai Jama. They can go on there and connect with me there.
I think too often when we hear work smarter, what we hear is don't do dumb things. Well, we know that. So I think what I should be doing more of with the podcast is explaining, what does work smarter mean? What does it look like? How is it different? Where do you start? And you get that in the courses, and I guess people don't understand the distinction between what they're doing now and what they could do better. Because ask yourself, do you work smart? I don't think anyone say, nope, I don't. I just work hard. I don't think anyone says that to themselves. But nobody really either shows them or helps them find out what is smarter. And I hear the three most dangerous words all the time. Is it three? It might be more in my head. When I hear that, I go, that's the worst place for your knowledge to be. Why? Because if you understand how the brain works, you'll find out it's in your head after you needed it, not before and not during. So that does you almost no good. To get the answer after the test doesn't help. I use the analogy all the time of travel and packing, because I traveled a lot, and it took me a long time before I just sat down and said, I should have a checklist. Have a list on my phone that I can bring up before I decide I'm done packing, to make sure I have all the essentials that I need. Because it's very embarrassing, time-consuming, and annoying to get to the location that you're going. You open up your bag and you want to charge your phone and you don't have your charger, or you don't have dress shoes, or you don't have socks, or you don't have a belt and your pants fall off. All these little things that, is it because of stupidity? You could blame that, but it's just activity. It's just being aware at the right time. Now, when I'm there at the hotel, it's not really a eureka moment. Oh, I got to remember my belt. But that's too late. The test is over. Now I either hold my pants up or go buy a belt, neither of which is fun to do. So in your head is the wrong place for it to be. In sales, this working smarter thing, if you don't do it, ask yourself, how long is it going to take you to be successful? And people all the time, because I talk with leaders all the time, enablement people, CEOs, and the word that always comes out is they know that. And it's like, well, yes, I don't challenge that they know how to sell. I don't. But it's a performance. How well do they know about this particular thing? If you're in the winning the complex sale, watch that presentation. Now, this is a successful company, highly funded, and has the challenge of why now? And you know what? Everyone's got that challenge. I have that challenge. And to find out that that's what you should have been conversing about after you find out that you didn't get the deal is, you might give yourself a pat on the back, but you paid a very expensive lesson there. You did not get the deal. And you can try and repair it, good luck, or you can learn from it and not repeat it. I think the working smarter is so powerful because guess what? Every company I've ever been at, I always looked at who are the top performers. And you would think it would be the hard worker or the natural. Now, they all do good. They're the B players, or maybe A minus, and they might have a good quarter. Consistently, it was always the work smarter person. Why? Because we only have 24 hours in a day. You can't work 25 hours in a day. So the only choice you have is to become more productive. Now, companies are trying to do this with technology, but that's really just taking dumb things and doing them faster and more often. And does it get better results? Well, you judge for yourself. The other alternative is to use your judgment. Focus on the people most likely. Talk about the things they most likely care about. Work with them differently than other people. Find these little distinctions, like what we talked about in the show about relationships. It's not about being best buddies. It's about having something that they want to engage about and focusing on them and having them want to talk with you, enjoy talking with you. The subject is about them, okay? That happens to be something that you do. And in winning the complex sale, I teach people how to build that conversation. Now, these skills people don't teach. Everyone teaches the value proposition, the relevance, the spammy emails, but that's 20 years ago. I remember them. And they were helpful back then. The problem is, for 15 or 20 years, people have been bombarded with them. And when you get one a week, yeah, you read it. When you get 5 a day, you kind of ignore it. That's the challenge we are at today. And everybody looks for the silver bullet. Okay, tell me what working smarter is. Check, I did that. It's not that. It's something you have to work on every day. Now, I fell in love with it because I hated wasting time. I wanted to make money. I hated losing, loved winning, and I tried to work harder. Everyone does. That's the first go-to move in sales, is to work harder. And it's not bad. It's just less effective. And guess what happens? You get sick, you get burnt out, you kind of let the other parts of your life neglect. Everyone's, oh, you can do it all. Well, you can't. You get 24 hours in a day. Okay, you can do as much as you can there, but as soon as you do one thing, you can't be doing the other. You can't be sleeping and working at the same time. And believe me, I even tried the reducing the sleeping thing. In my 20s, I read all these books and things, and I just kept trying to hack. And the best hack I've ever found in my entire career was making me my own silver bullet, my process, my approach, my judgment skills. And this was a daily recursive compounding process. And that's what I teach in the course. It's not a silver bullet like copy me. It's build yourself, your system, into an unstoppable sales machine. And it's not a switch where it goes from one to the other. It's an evolution, much like learning anything. Musical instrument, any skill, any performance type of skill. Not a checklist, know it, don't know it. How well do you do it? Hey, was that a great episode or what? I did, every time I have an interview, you don't know where it's going to go, but sometimes it just clicks, where you find somebody who's really got something that's different. Now, this guy's only been selling for 6 years, and that's the beauty of it, that he found it so early in his career. And it's kind of going against the system a little. And the best salespeople tend to, because if the system worked, it would work. The problem is when the system just does okay, and the system is set up for, inbound order taking, account development. And if you have that, fantastic. If you don't, you have to be a pioneer. You're landing on a strange planet, and you have to figure out how to get friendly with the natives. And nobody wants to hear that. Managers don't want to listen to that. Everybody wants the soldiers in a line marching towards the enemy. And that's the brute force attack, and it may work, but it might not. And if it doesn't, whose fault is it? It's not the strategy, it's not the executives, not the VCs. It's the rep's fault. They will always get blamed. Who gets fired? The rep gets fired. The manager doesn't get fired. It's our job to make it happen and to figure out how to get it to happen. To blindly follow a process that isn't clearly working, I don't mean fight it. I mean figure it out. There's a distinction there. It's easy to fight it and say, oh, it doesn't work. I'm going to sit here until you have something that works. It's different to say, I'm going to figure it out. Somewhat clandestinely sometimes, definitely proactively, but you have to own it, because at the end of the day, you own it whether you like it or not. And you'll find out abruptly whether you own it. Much like most things in life. Yes, the bad thing doesn't happen immediately, so the correlation isn't felt. But if you look at it over time, look at any bad habit. Okay, you don't get the negative result immediately. You probably get a positive result, what I call a trap. Easy to get into, hard to get out of. And everyone thinks getting out of it should be easy. Just tell me the secret, and they keep looking for the secret. And the secret is to prevent it and not get into the trap. Check out the courses. If you're not having enough meetings and conversations, start with winning, or start the conversation, get the meeting. Everyone asks me, what's the right course for me? I always push it back on you. What's your major challenge right now? Are you having enough net new conversations to build up your pipeline? And people say, well, how many per week? Real people that you are talking to interactively, engaged with, that can convert to a phone, Zoom conversation of some kind. And the most common answer is one, which means kind of one every 2 weeks. If it's not 5 or 10 or 20, you need this course. Pays for itself in 1 week. The other course is winning the complex sale. Now, everyone thinks, oh, I win half the time, or I win when I count the ones that I think will win. You got to increase this. Our time is all we have. You can't pause it. You can't rewind time. You can't buy another minute. So the time is ticking. And everybody says, when's the right time to take the course? I go, the first year you were in sales. Or today. Okay, every day you wait is a day that you're not moving in the right direction on these deals. And you can't buy that day back. And the course only goes up in price. It doesn't go down. But it does compound, meaning with each student that joins, adds a little different perspective, adds additional content by questions, perspective, deals. You get to hear real deals being talked through from start to finish. You get to participate in a community every other Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Zoom. All the dates and the links are in the first chapter. You join, we talk through what you care about. I always prepare a topic and summarize the one-on-ones and how people are progressing through the course. Wins, losses, you get to share that and get better. Systematic way of compounding. There's nothing else like this on the internet. Yeah, there's a bunch of online courses, but no community. There's community with no one has an incentive to help you. All they're doing is selling you in the course. And you want to be in a community of the best, or the people who want to become the best. When it's free, people come and they take. When people pay, they come and they want to get something out of it. And the person, like me, shows up prepared, well thought out. And this is all I do. This is my bag, baby. This is all I do. And it's my passion. So if it's your passion to become better at sales, participate. Yeah, you can listen in and tourist. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But when you participate, when you ask questions, when you share challenges, when you want to get a different perspective and talk over those distinctions that will make your game better, that's when you really grow as a salesperson. So go to B2B Revenue, sign up. You can pay all at once. It's a year-long access. How long does it take? It takes a lifetime, but start today. Or you can pay monthly. So it's 12 monthly payments. It's not a subscription. It's not cancelable. I want people to commit to that 12 months. And I do break it down to make it affordable, but not a subscription. Why is that? Clearly because it's a digital product. I don't want people like, I'm going to rush through it in 30 days and get the result. Well, then you've taken my value, you haven't gotten much, but you think you saved some money. That's not the bag I want. It's a year-long access, and what you'll find is like-minded reps, people who want to become better. Go check it out. Please check out the other shows, the Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers, Sales Leadership Show, and the B2B Revenue Leadership Show. Check out all the videos, are all kept up on YouTube. If you want to help me out, I'm sure you do. Tell a friend is the number one thing you could do. Number two is like, comment, and share my content when you see it fly by on LinkedIn. I'll see you next time.